How many times in your life have you felt that you were living according to someone else's expectations? How many times have you smiled while inside you were carrying an invisible exhaustion? Carl Jung once wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And perhaps this is the moment you begin to truly become yourself, not a reflection of external pressure, but the original self beneath it. This video is not merely 1 hour for you to listen, it is 1 hour for you to shed the worn-out layers, to recognize what still truly belongs to you, and what has reached its time to leave your life. This is a journey of rediscovering your inner strength, cultivating serenity in detachment, and standing firmly in a world that constantly pulls on your attention. If you have ever felt too sensitive, too quiet, too different, perhaps those are not weaknesses, but invitations from your soul to return to your true nature. Let the coming moments be a gentle healing journey, soft, contemplative, yet powerful enough to reshape the way you see yourself. The silent turning point from pretending to living truthfully. There are turning points in life that do not arrive like thunder, but like a sigh. Not an explosive eruption, but a subtle inner cracking just enough for us to recognize that we can no longer continue living the way we used to. That turning point is the moment we shift from pretending to living authentically. For many years, most of us learn to survive through adaptation, pleasing others, performing roles. We say what is acceptable. We smile when we are expected to smile. We appear fine when we are required to be fine. We perform a social version of ourselves, a persona, just as Jung named it. He once wrote, "Persona is only a mask of the collective psyche, the face we wear to be recognized by society." But one day, not a great day, not some grand moment, just an ordinary morning, or an evening of quiet, we suddenly realize we no longer have the energy to hold that mask up. Not because we are rebelling, but because we are exhausted. We can no longer betray our soul. Many people experience this moment as a tightening in the chest, a sensation of choking, as if the body is speaking on behalf of the soul. "Return me to the truth." Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Awakening is never gentle. It is often the result of accumulated pain, rising to the point where we can no longer live as before. And indeed, when the soul begins to resist false living, we no longer easily say yes to what we do not want. We no longer force a smile through fatigue. We no longer keep ourselves in relationships that make us shrink. What is interesting is this leaving behind the life of pretending does not begin with a grand declaration. Not from today on. I will live authentically. No. It begins with the smallest gestures of the spirit. We exhale a long, real breath. We don't respond immediately. We decline softly. We choose silence over explanation. We walk away from conversations that no longer resonate. That is the door opening. Opening softly, but opening truly. We begin to hear more clearly. The inner voice, the voice we once ignored out of fear of judgment, of misunderstanding, of abandonment. We realize that we have spent too many years living to be accepted by others instead of accepting ourselves. Here, Jung offers a profoundly beautiful insight. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This means living authentically is not a skill, not an easy choice, not a confident slogan. Living authentically is an inner evolution. It is the journey from unconsciousness to consciousness. It is the process of peeling away, stripping down, returning to essence, and sometimes dissolving. Many people, when they begin to live truthfully, feel as though they are losing themselves, but in fact, they are only losing the false version. They feel isolated, but in truth, they are simply releasing connections that no longer fit. They feel empty, but that emptiness is the space into which truth can finally enter. Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." The silent turning point is precisely that awakening, not an awakening in glory, but in quiet, not an awakening in applause, but in solitude, not an awakening to merge with the crowd, but to step away from it. And here is the bitter but liberating truth. The more truthfully we live, the more we will lose certain things, but those things were never truly ours. What we gain is ourselves. What we reclaim is authentic breath. What we feel is a peace that does not need proof. Living truthfully is not doing everything we want. It is refusing to do what the soul rejects. It is not the assertion of ego, but the return to essence. Not victory over the world, but reconciliation with oneself. Finally, here lies the most crucial realization. At the moment when the soul refuses to remain silent, we no longer fear the cost of living authentically. We begin to fear the cost of continuing to live falsely. The small but sacred acts of refusal. When we reach that silent turning point, when the weight of pretending becomes too heavy to carry, we enter the next phase of the journey, the phase of small but sacred refusals. If, in the previous stage, we recognize the exhaustion of the soul, then in this stage, we begin to act not through outward explosion, but through quiet inner choosing. In the evolution of consciousness, it is not the grand decisions that change our lives, but the subtle, quiet, discreet choices. These refusals are as gentle as a passing breeze, yet they carry the liberating power of inner honesty. It turns out, human beings do not transform through bold proclamations. We transform through very small gestures of truthfulness with ourselves. One day, we stop forcing ourselves to stay in conversations that make our soul shrink. We stop laughing at jokes that bring us no joy. We stop pretending to be fine when we are exhausted. We stop nodding when our heart is shaking its head. Carl Jung understood these moments deeply. He once wrote, "The sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being." Our existence is not merely to survive, but to light a flame inside the darkness of existence. That light does not come from doing everything others expect, but from not betraying our inner voice. A sacred refusal is not a rejection of others, but a cessation of rejecting oneself. And the beautiful thing is, these refusals are not aggressive. We don't shout, "I won't tolerate this anymore." We simply turn away quietly. We don't declare, "I deserve better." We simply stop clinging to relationships that make us smaller. We don't say, "This is your fault." We simply whisper inwardly, "This no longer resonates with me." And then the body responds before the mind does. We feel heaviness when something is wrong, lightness when something is right. A message we hesitate to open is already a signal. A meeting after which we always feel depleted is already a signal. A person whose mere presence makes our energy contract is already a signal. Jung once affirmed, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." Clarity does not come from societal standards, but from listening to the heart. And when we look deeply within, we realize it's not that we are too demanding. It's not that we are too sensitive. It's not that we are too vague. We are simply beginning to realign with ourselves. The concept of sacred refusal can be understood as a natural filtering of the soul, just as the body knows to expel toxins. The psyche does the same. It releases what no longer fits, no longer nourishes, no longer connects. These small refusals are the first steps of inner self-respect. And here lies the most fascinating truth. When we say no to what is not meant for us, we are unconsciously saying yes to what vibrates correctly with us. We are not losing. We are making space. We are not closing off. We are letting in. We are not rejecting the world. We are choosing ourselves again. And of course, this is not always easy. Because when we begin to refuse what was once habitual, there will be resistance from the outside. Those who expect us to always be available will think we've changed. Those who depend on us will think we have become cold. Those who benefited from our self-abandonment will think we are uncaring. Those accustomed to our sacrifice will think we are selfish. But here is a truth Jung continually emphasized. A person reaches a higher level of consciousness when he refuses to be a tool of others' expectations. This is not a direct Jung quote, but a paraphrase of his essence, so I will not present it as a source citation. The more accurate original idea is, individuation is to stand on one's own feet. To become oneself is to stand firmly on one's own ground. These small refusals are how we begin to stand that way. Eventually, something miraculous happens. We no longer need to try to be right. We no longer need to justify our kindness. We no longer need to seek permission to be ourselves. We simply become ourselves, without apology, without explanation, without struggle. This is the beauty of this stage. Sacred refusal is not a resistance against the world. It is a loyalty to one's soul. We come to realize that every time we courageously say no to what is false, we are saying yes to the integrity of our inner being. And from here, the journey leads us toward a new state where loneliness is no longer a punishment, but a sacred space for the maturing of the soul. 3. Loneliness is no longer a punishment, but becomes a sacred space. When the sacred refusals begin to unfold, when we gently step away from relationships, habits, and environments that no longer fit a space appears. A gap in our social life, and a quiet pause in the soul. The next stage begins loneliness, but it is no longer the frightening loneliness of the past. It gradually becomes a silence that feels sacred. For much of our lives, we feared loneliness. Loneliness was the sign of being unloved, uncared for, not belonging. It felt like a punishment. We ran from it, clinging to any connection we could hold on to. We accepted superficial conversations, draining relationships, heavy presences, just to avoid the feeling of being alone. But something strange happens when we begin to live truthfully. We realize that loneliness is no longer something to avoid, but something to enter. Carl Jung once wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no one around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. Loneliness does not arise from the absence of people, but from the inability to share what matters with those around us." This is an entirely different kind of loneliness. It is not loneliness from being left behind. It is loneliness from having stepped onto another level of awareness. We begin to understand that our inner world contains depths that not everyone can understand, and not everyone needs to. At this point, loneliness is no longer emptiness. It is the fullness of ourselves. In truth, loneliness becomes a space of energy restoration, a period of psychic recuperation, a place where the soul returns after years of wandering to please others. We begin to realize being alone is no longer lacking someone. Being alone is returning wholly to oneself. No more need to explain ourselves to others. No more anxiety about being understood or misunderstood. No more hunger for external validation. We begin to feel the meaning of the sentence, "Yes, this is my path." And here lies a very subtle but profound milestone. We move from the longing to be understood to the ease of not needing to be understood. This is an extraordinarily important psychological shift, because before this stage, we needed others as anchors. To confirm we were right, to prove we had value, to assure us we were not lost, to witness our existence. But now, we can anchor ourselves. We see the truth Jung always tried to convey. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The most frightening and also the most liberating thing is to fully accept oneself. When we accept ourselves, loneliness is no longer a void. It becomes a sunlit room. Loneliness becomes the cathedral of the soul, where we see more clearly who we are, what we want, what we do not want, where we belong, and where we no longer belong. And more importantly, in loneliness, we separate from the noise of the world, so we can hear the voice within. Here, something beautiful happens. We begin to see the old layers of ego fall away, the versions of ourselves we once performed and upheld. No longer I am the one who must help everyone. I am the one who must be strong. I am the one who must be agreeable. I am the one who must prove my worth. But instead, I only need to be real. Many people at this stage unconsciously ask, am I lonely or am I independent? And the difference lies in the feeling. Loneliness is being separated from the world. Independence is stepping away from the world to return to oneself. And that is what Jung pointed toward loneliness as transformation, not loss. We no longer feel pain when no one walks beside us. We simply feel serene knowing we are on the right path. When we enter loneliness consciously, we discover something we never imagined before. Being alone is no longer a prison, but a freedom. Within that freedom, we begin to listen to the voice of intuition, the whisper of the soul, the subtle rhythm of genuine feeling, and the guidance of inner energy. Jung once wrote, "In each of us, there is another whom we do not know. Inside every one of us, there is another person we have never met, and that one only appears when we are quiet enough to encounter them. No more external attention, no more expectation, no more societal noise. There is only me and the deepest part of me. That is where loneliness becomes a sacred space. Before, intuition, the body, and energy become refined. When loneliness ceases to be fear and becomes a sacred space. When we learn to remain with ourselves in stillness, something astonishing begins to happen. We begin to hear more clearly the subtle signals from within, no longer distorted by social noise, by expectation, by the fear of judgment. We begin to perceive our own energy in each relationship, each situation, each glance, and that is when intuition, the body, and energy become refined. It can be said that we possess a kind of spiritual navigation system, like birds knowing their way south, like young plants leaning instinctively towards sunlight. But when we live against our nature, that system becomes clouded by the dust of social conditioning. We listen to others more than to ourselves. We look outward before we look inward. We pursue things that seem right instead of what is truly right. But when we begin to live authentically, a miracle occurs. The body becomes wiser. The body is the first to speak when we step into something that is not aligned. A heaviness in the chest, a slight headache, a passing discomfort, a quick drain of life force. Carl Jung once wrote, "The body is the mirror of the soul." This means the soul knows first, the mind only recognizes afterward. We can convince ourselves that a relationship is still okay, that a job is fine, that an environment is reasonable, but the body says otherwise, and the body cannot lie. Then comes intuition, what science often refers to as subconscious processing becoming clearer. Jung once said, "The unconscious is not just evil by nature, it also contains the seed of the creative." The unconscious does not only hold darkness, it also carries the seed of imagination. Intuition is the voice of the unconscious. It speaks through sensation, not reasoning. It speaks through knowing, not argument. It speaks through aligned frequency or misaligned frequency. In the past, we often evaluated people by what they said, the politeness they displayed, the image they curated, the way they made us perceive them. But when intuition awakens, we begin evaluating through energetic resonance. Does this person make me contract or expand? Does their presence bring peace or unease? Do I feel authentic or performative around them? Which frequency does their energy inhabit? And the answer comes not through thought, but through sensing. There are people we have met only once, yet they feel deeply right. There are others we have known for years, yet we never feel safe to open ourselves. It has nothing to do with time, and everything to do with frequency. We begin to understand that every connection in life operates on an invisible principle, resonance. We no longer choose through logic, but through alignment, the harmony between the inner and the outer. We become less impulsive before shiny appearances, and more sensitive to genuine resonance. We become less attracted to noise, and more attuned to the quiet energy beneath it. Jung once said, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." When choosing through inner seeing, we begin to live in alignment, aligned emotions, aligned energy, aligned environments, aligned people. And this brings with it a very important result. We become less manipulable, less influenced, less steerable. Someone might say the most beautiful words, yet we still feel a subtle mismatch. An environment may appear prestigious, yet something feels off. An opportunity may look promising, yet we still detect strange energy. Because at this stage, we are no longer using only the intellect, but the entire energetic perceptive system. The body becomes a refined radar. Intuition becomes a compass. Energy becomes a language. We understand what Jung continually emphasized. We don't really solve a problem, we outgrow it. By living authentically, we rise into another frequency, a level where many of the disturbances of the past can no longer reach us. We begin to choose lighter relationships, choose environments of correct resonance, choose a balanced pace of life, choose quiet presence, choose interactions that help us expand naturally. We become perceptive without being overwhelmed, receptive without being consumed, sensitive without being swallowed. The body says no, and we listen. Intuition says no, and we honor it. Energy says no, and we walk away. And when every choice is made through the harmony of inner energy, life begins to flow with less resistance, less wandering, and less wounding. 5. Living authentically means making the darkness conscious. When intuition and energetic perception become refined, we begin to distinguish clearly between what is aligned with us and what is out of frequency. But there is a deeper layer in the journey of authenticity, not only listening to the inner voice, but daring to face the hidden parts within ourselves. And this is the next stage, making the darkness conscious. In the maturation of the inner life, there is a gateway everyone must pass through, facing one's own darkness. Darkness here is not something terrifying. It is simply the part of ourselves that we once rejected, hid, or denied. Carl Jung called this part the shadow. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. We do not attain illumination by visualizing light, but by bringing the darkness into awareness." This is one of Jung's most fundamental statements, and it contains the entire essence of living authentically. Living authentically is not about always being strong. Living authentically is not about always being positive. Living authentically is not about becoming a perfect version of oneself. Living authentically is daring to look directly at vulnerability, weakness, wounds, failures, mistakes, and no longer running from them. Years ago, we may have buried painful memories deep into the unconscious, using busyness, achievement, and attention from others to cover them. We thought we had moved on, but in truth, we simply placed them into shadow. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This means pains not confronted become behavioral patterns. Wounds not healed become emotional habits. Fears not named become life choices. Hidden memories become repetitive cycles we reenact unconsciously. For example, someone who was abandoned may unconsciously fear intimacy. Someone who was belittled may unconsciously crave validation. Someone who was controlled may unconsciously resist all commitments. Someone who was hurt may unconsciously build walls of defense. And then they say, "That's just who I am. That's just my personality. That's just destiny." No, that is the shadow, not the essence. But to see the shadow, we need courage. We must dare to look not through the lens of self-defense, not through illusion, not through justification. This is the powerful moment in the journey of authenticity, the courage to acknowledge what we once avoided. Jung once said, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality." The shadow is a moral challenge to the entire structure of the ego, because the shadow forces us to let go of the idealized image of ourselves and face ourselves in raw truth. For example, we may have to admit that we tolerated too much, that we were too accommodating, that we abandoned ourselves, that we traded our values for acceptance, that we hurt others while believing we were the victim. But the most important point here, facing the shadow is not self-condemnation, it is self-liberation, because when the darkness is seen, it loses its power over us. Someone who once lived with fear of failure will no longer be driven by it once they understand where it truly came from. Someone who once lived in shame will no longer be imprisoned by it once they accept themselves as they are. Someone who once lived to please will no longer be controlled by that pattern once they understand the insecurity rooted in their past. This is what integration truly means. It means we do not erase the past, we bring it into the light of awareness. Not "I have made too many mistakes," but "I have survived and learned much." Not "I used to be weak," but "I was wounded, and that does not define me." Not "I must be perfect," but "I am a human being in the process of becoming." When darkness is integrated, there is no longer a split between the me I show the world and the me I keep hidden. We become a unified whole, an integrated self, a complete soul, and then something beautiful happens. The way we speak to ourselves changes. No more cold internal judgment, no more harsh self-attacks, no more heavy self-blame. Instead, we speak to ourselves with understanding, with kindness, with compassion. We become the new mother to our inner child. We become the new teacher to our unfinished parts. We become the new lover of our own soul. And in that moment, true strength appears. Not the strength of gritting our teeth, not the strength of hiding, not the strength of denying, but the strength of fully accepting ourselves. 6. Protecting energy boundaries, discernment, and natural shedding. When we have the courage to look into our inner darkness and bring it into awareness, when inner fragmentation is replaced with wholeness, a natural shift appears in our external life. We begin to know how to protect our energy, because when we have become truthful with ourselves, we can no longer offer our heart, our time, and our spirit to what is not in frequency with us. There is something almost everyone experiences when entering the path of inner awakening. Relationships begin to change, not because we decide to cut people out, but because we no longer adjust our own energy to fit theirs. We no longer shrink ourselves to fit into their space. We no longer contort ourselves to avoid making them uncomfortable. We no longer tolerate energetic misalignment. Carl Jung said something deeply insightful. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. When two individuals meet, if there is real reaction, both are changed. When we live falsely, our relationships are built upon the false version of ourselves. When we live truthfully, those relationships must either restructure or dissolve. Here, we enter a subtle but essential skill setting boundaries, not from fear, but from self-respect. In earlier stages, we were afraid to say no, afraid of making others upset, afraid of being seen as selfish, afraid of being left behind, afraid of losing the identity of the good person. But eventually we realize the cost of saying yes when we want to say no is betrayal of the soul. And that cost is too high. So one day, we choose inner honesty over external approval. We begin to ask ourselves, do I truly want to attend this meeting? Do I truly want to reply to this message? Do I truly want to listen to this conversation? Do I truly want to allow this person into my energetic field? Our body knows before our mind. Our energy responds before our reasoning. Our intuition speaks before our language. Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." When we understand our own wounds and shadows, we begin to quickly recognize those who come to us merely to discharge their negative energy and leave us empty afterward. We see clearly those who feed on attention, empathy, and emotional supply, but never offer authentic presence in return. We recognize those who do not seek connection, but seek emotional nourishment. With these people, we no longer blame, we no longer resent, we no longer feel anger, we simply do not open the door. Not because we hate them, but because we no longer belong to that frequency. Here is an important truth. Some relationships do not disappear because something went wrong, but because the frequency has changed. When we live in the frequency of pretending, we attract people who need that pretending. When we live in the frequency of healing, we attract souls who are walking their own healing. When we live in the frequency of authenticity, we attract hearts that can hear truth. Jung once observed the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And when we become ourselves, those who are truly capable of walking with us begin to appear. Some connections deepen because for the first time, we show up as who we truly are. No more masks, no more roles, no more performance, no more hiding, but authentic presence, genuine empathy, soul-to-soul connection. Conversely, misaligned connections fade like mist dissolving in the morning light. Not because we push them away, but because we are no longer there for them to hold on to. We are no longer broadcasting on the old frequency, and therefore, those who are only attuned to that channel can no longer receive our signal. This is natural shedding, profound, gentle, without drama. We do not slam doors. The door simply closes quietly. Some people think we changed. Some think we grew distant. Some think we are not the same anymore. And in a way, they are right. because we are no longer the old version of ourselves. Jung wrote, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it. We cannot change anything unless we accept it." And once we accept ourselves, something miraculous happens. We begin to live without needing the acceptance of others. We realize that boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are doors that can open or close. And the key is in our hands. We know who may enter, who remains at the threshold, who we keep at a distance, who we invite deeper in. And all of this is decided not by logic, but by energetic congruence. 7. Breaking free from the addiction to being loved and accepted. When we learn to protect our energy, when we begin to set boundaries and become selective about the relationships that come close, a painful yet liberating truth gradually reveals itself in the past. We once traded ourselves away for the need to be loved and accepted. And that is when we must face one of the deepest psychological patterns in the human psyche, the addiction to being loved, validated, respected, and needed by others. Throughout the course of psychological growth, many people realize that what they were truly addicted to was not love itself, but the feeling of being loved. Not genuine connection, but social affirmation. Not companionship, but reassurance that they were good enough. From very early childhood, we unconsciously learned, if I behave the right way, I will be loved. If I please others, I will be kept. If I endure, I will not be abandoned. And thus, an identity formed based on emotionally servicing others. We became the good person, the kind one, the one who always understands, the one who always listens, the one who is always there for someone, the one who endures and never bothers anyone. But behind these seemingly positive labels was a silent sacrifice of self. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The most frightening thing is to accept oneself completely." And the great paradox is we seek love by abandoning ourselves. We seek acceptance by not accepting ourselves. We seek recognition from society by neglecting the needs of our inner world. People who carry the pattern of addiction to being loved often share common traits. Always ready to be the emotional healer for others. Always present when someone is hurting. Always giving the spotlight to others. Always carrying, enduring, thinking, worrying on behalf of others. They become what modern psychology calls an emotional caretaker, or as you beautifully described, an emotional emergency room. Someone is sad, they show up. Someone is in crisis, they show up. Someone is exhausted, they show up. But when they are sad, they usually cope alone. When they are in pain, they go silent. When they need someone, they think, "I shouldn't burden others." And they carry a very specific internal sensation, a kind of invisible emotional debt, as if they must pay for their existence by emotionally servicing others. They believe, "I am only worthy of love when I am useful. I only have value when I can help someone. I only get to stay if I do not disappoint anyone." This pattern often comes with what Jung called a complex, the formation of unconscious psychological knots. Jung wrote, "A complex is not just a little trouble. It is a psychic organism that can take possession of the whole personality," meaning we do not realize we are being controlled by the fear of abandonment. We do not realize we are chasing social acceptance. We do not realize we are living through the validation of others. We think we are kind, nice, lovable, good listeners. But the truth is, we are unconsciously begging for love. We think we are needed by many people, but the truth is we are addicted to being needed. Here is the truth that must be looked at directly. The desire to be loved is entirely different from the capacity to love. In the desire to be loved, we seek love from outside to fill the inner void. In the capacity to love, we are full inside, so love becomes giving, not begging. We once called our endurance love, but Jung would say that was psychological dependency, not love. We once called our endless sacrifice understanding, but Jung would say that was turning ourselves into a tool, not understanding. We once called our emotional tolerance maturity, but Jung would ask, is it maturity or is it fear of abandonment? From here, something crucial emerges. Breaking free from the addiction to being loved and accepted always begins by having the courage to stop adjusting ourselves to meet others' expectations. We must dare to disappoint a few people, be misunderstood, be seen as selfish, be perceived as not the same anymore, be removed from someone's emotional emergency call list. We must dare to lose the role of the good one for everyone in order to finally become the one who is good to ourselves. And here is Jung's pivotal insight about the relationship between authenticity and love. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. We do not need to be loved because we are useful. We do not need to be kept because we serve. We do not need to be accepted because we compromise. We are worthy of love simply because we are ourselves. 8. Emotional exploiters, emotional debt, and the image of the wounded healer. As we gradually free ourselves from the cycle of needing to be loved and accepted, as we no longer see our worth dependent on being needed by others, another picture begins to come into focus. We see that some people entered our lives not for the purpose of connection, but to absorb our energy. And in that moment, we must face a quiet but powerful truth. Some people are not seeking our authentic self. They are seeking the emotional supply we provide. In life, there are people who come to us not because they care about who we are, but because they need what we bring: understanding, kindness, empathy, attention, presence, the ability to make them feel better about themselves. They do not need our being, they need our energy. And if we were once the one who always listens, the one who is always there, the one who understands, the one who carries others, then we unconsciously attracted such people. Carl Jung said something painfully accurate. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. And one of the ways they avoid themselves is by offloading their emotions onto others. They do not want to deal with their own pain, so they make us carry it. They do not want to confront their fear, so they use us as the container. They do not dare to face their wound, so they use our presence as temporary anesthesia. Here we encounter a subtle mechanism: emotional debt, an invisible emotional obligation. Emotional exploiters never say out loud, "I need you to soothe me. I need your attention so I don't feel empty. I need your energy so I can function." Instead, they skillfully plant inside us a sense of, if you leave when I need you, you're a bad person. If you don't show up for me, you're heartless. If you refuse to listen, you're cold and unfeeling. They turn our presence into duty. They turn our empathy into obligation. They turn our care into a debt. And thus, we become the wounded healer. Wounded healer. This is a deeply Jungian concept. Jung once described, "A good half of every treatment that probes at all deeply consists in the doctor examining himself." A good portion of deep healing involves the healer examining themselves, meaning one cannot truly heal others if one has not healed oneself. But the wounded healer does the opposite. They carry others' wounds. They accept others' pain as their own. They become the absorber, and they themselves become exhausted. The wounded healer often has these traits: highly sensitive to others' emotions, always attuned to others' pain, always wanting to lift someone up, always trying to rescue, always feeling responsible for others' emotional states, but they often do not know how to recognize when they are being used, set boundaries, decline, ask for reciprocity, tend to their own wounds, and they usually carry an unconscious belief: I must help others to be worthy of love. Carl Jung understood this profoundly. He said, "The healer who neglects his own wound is bound to create new wounds in others. The healer who ignores their own wound will eventually wound others." Because at some point, we break, we burn out. We cannot endure anymore. We freeze. We disappear from the relationship. And the other person will say, "You've changed. You're not like you used to be. You're selfish now. You abandoned me." But the truth is this: we have just finally begun to choose ourselves. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to breaking the cycle of exploitation. We must dare to ask, does this person come to me because of who I am or because of what I provide? They express their feelings, but do they ever ask about mine? They receive so much, but do they ever give anything back? After being around them, do I feel filled or emptied? The core issue is this: becoming responsible for others' feelings. Becoming responsible for others' emotional world is a form of imprisonment. We must return that responsibility to its rightful owner. We must learn to say, your emotions are your responsibility. Your healing is your journey. I cannot live your emotional life for you. And finally, the greatest, most freeing realization: I do not owe you my energy. This is the end of emotional debt. This is the liberation of the wounded healer. This is the return to oneself. 9. The liberating act. Daring to disappear. Daring to walk away. When we realize that we have lived as a wounded healer, when we clearly see relationships sustained through emotional debt, when we understand the manipulation of those who want our energy but not our essence, an unavoidable truth emerges for true healing. We must dare to leave. And that is when the liberating act begins. There is a form of courage that is not loud, not aggressive, not confrontational. There is a quieter and deeper form of courage. It is simply no longer showing up in places where the soul no longer belongs. One of the most common misconceptions we have is believing to leave. I must explain, to be silent. I must justify, to cut ties. I must prove them wrong. But the truth is, not everyone is worthy of hearing the explanation. Not everyone deserves the opportunity to debate. Not everyone is entitled to be led into our inner world. Carl Jung once said something haunting. "Solitude is for me a fount of healing, which makes my life worth living." In that solitude, we recognize the power of intentional disappearance. Disappearing is not running away. Disappearing is not cowardice. Disappearing is not avoidance. Disappearing is a ritual of rebirth. It is when we pull our energy back inward. It is when we unplug the emotional ivy that connects us to the other. It is when we withdraw from the roles of the healer, the bearer, the understanding one, the good one, the reasonable one. And when we do, something profound happens. We return to being someone who lives for themselves. The pain of leaving is real. It is. We do not deny it. It aches like a cold incision. It stings like an unexpected absence. But we soon realize the pain of letting go is far lighter than the pain of staying and continuing to betray ourselves. When we stay, we die slowly inside. When we leave, we hurt. But it is the pain of healing. This is something Jung understood deeply. He said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. There is no awakening without discomfort. When we leave a misaligned relationship, we suffer. But it is the suffering of someone returning home to themselves. There is a sacred moment when we look into the mirror and we rediscover our own eyes, our own voice, our own breath, our own presence. When we truly inhabit our own life, we realize something essential. No one is the center of our existence except ourselves." Disappearing carries another meaning. It is not disconnecting from the other. It is reconnecting with the inner one. It is not removing someone from our life. It is returning ourselves to ourselves. Carl Jung wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." To walk away is to look inside. To walk away is to say, "I no longer want to sleep inside pretense. I no longer want to dream inside dependency. I want to awaken." And once awake, we cannot remain in the old place. The liberating act requires no justification. A person who has truly awakened no longer needs others to understand them. They only need to be true to themselves. There are goodbyes that are never spoken out loud. There are relationships that end in silence. There are doors that close without a sound. And that is the most beautiful way. No resentment, no accusation, no indictment, no explanation, simply no longer being there. That departure is an act of exquisite self-respect, a forward step of the soul toward its own light. And finally, the most important truth: we do not walk away to punish someone else. We walk away to save ourselves. 10. Jung, letting go, detachment, and the process of individuation. When we dare to leave, dare to be silent, dare to disappear from spaces that no longer belong to us, the next transformation doesn't happen outside, but inside. After departure comes return. After the act of releasing begins the shedding of psychological layers, old beliefs, unconscious burdens. And that is precisely where the philosophy of Carl Jung enters with the wisdom of letting go, detachment, and the journey of returning to the true self, individuation. There is a major misunderstanding in modern life. Many people believe that letting go means being emotionless. that detachment is not needing anyone, that it is coldness, withdrawal, emotional numbness. But for Jung, letting go is not shutting off emotion. It is freeing ourselves from what no longer serves the growth of the soul. It is not the rejection of love, but the rejection of toxic attachment. It is not closing the heart, but keeping the heart intact. Jung understood something profound. Human beings carry beliefs, relational imprints, wounds, and these create a life script in the unconscious. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Until we bring the unconscious into consciousness, it directs our lives, and we call it destiny." We keep repeating the same kind of person, the same kind of relationship, the same kind of disappointment, the same kind of betrayal, the same kind of pain, not because life is unfair, not because I am unlucky, but because the unconscious is leading. It speaks through repetitive patterns, emotional responses that activate old memories, dreams saturated with symbols, meaningful coincidences, synchronicity. Jung believed synchronicity is not random. He called it a meaningful coincidence. When we are close to breaking out of an old cycle, the unconscious sends signals. When we are about to shift frequency, synchronicity appears like a whisper of guidance. Suddenly someone enters our life. A book appears at the right time. A sentence from someone pierces straight through. A dream awakens us. That is the unconscious knocking. And in that process, letting go is no longer loss, but liberation. Detachment is no longer retreat, but rebirth. We let go of the need to be loved, the need to please, the need to endure, the need to rescue others, the need to explain in order to be accepted. And when we release these, we enter the process Jung called individuation. What is individuation? It is the journey of becoming oneself, not the social self, not the expected self, not the conditioned self, not the nice, compliant, useful self. Individuation is becoming the true essence of the soul. Jung wrote, "Individuation is a process of differentiation, having for its goal the development of the individual personality. In this process, we begin to see clearly what is essential to us, what is merely an act, what arises from the soul, what arises from conditioning, what is truly us, and what is a script written by others." Individuation is not rebellion, it is return, not breaking everything apart, but breaking into the core. During this process, many things naturally fall away like dry fruit falling from a winter branch. People, relationships, habits, social structures, old beliefs. Not because we no longer need them, but because we are no longer compatible with them. We no longer live to meet expectations. We no longer live for applause. We no longer live for permission. We no longer live to be understood. We no longer live to be loved under conditions. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Letting go is the condition of returning. Letting go of the belief I am not enough. Letting go of the belief I must live this way to be accepted. Letting go of the fear of abandonment. Letting go of the role of everyone's good person. Letting go of the compulsion to make others comfortable." And then a quiet inner miracle unfolds. We begin to feel enough inside. We no longer need love to prove our worth. We no longer need acceptance to affirm our existence. We no longer need praise to stand firm. We no longer need recognition to feel deserving. We return to our center, to our own heartbeat, to our own unique path. 11. When living authentically, the frequency changes and the external world reorganizes. When the journey of individuation brings us back to ourselves, when psychological layers are peeled away, when emotional bindings are released, when old beliefs are let go, something extraordinary happens. It is not that we change the outer world, but that the outer world begins to adjust itself to our new frequency. There is a truth Jung understood, and many people later experienced and affirmed. The external world does not reflect what we want. It reflects what we are. We change the quality of our inner energy, and it is as if the broadcast signal changes. Those who once were drawn to our endurance, came to receive emotional support from us, sought to unload their pain onto us suddenly, can no longer connect, not because we avoid them, but because there is no longer resonance. Meanwhile, hearts of similar frequency, real individuals, souls who have walked the path of self-awareness, begin to appear. Jung once wrote, "The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it." And it is absolutely true when we live authentically. Values rearrange. We no longer seek the big things to impress. We seek what truly carries meaning for the soul. This is one of the clearest signs that frequency has shifted. Synchronicity begins to appear more often. Synchronicity is not a lucky coincidence. It is the resonance between the inner world and the outer world. Jung defined it as, synchronicity is an acausal connecting principle. It is as if the universe whispers to us, as if the world offers signals, as if the soul is being guided. There are moments. We think of someone and they message us. We wonder about something, and the answer shows up somewhere unexpected. We are about to give up, and a sign appears. We shift internally, and a new opportunity emerges. This is not magic. It is the alignment of frequency between self and reality. Another change takes place, the definition of success. Before, success was being seen, approved, accepted, liked. But now success is not betraying ourselves. Success is living according to essence. Success is being able to sleep with a peaceful heart. Success is preserving the integrity of the soul. We change our definition of love. Before, love was someone needing us. Now love is someone seeing us truly. Not the persona, not the mask, not the version acceptable to others, but ourselves in our most authentic expression. We change our definition of connection. Before, connection was how many people surrounded us. Now connection is the quality of presence. We no longer fear loneliness, for loneliness has become a sanctuary. We no longer fear losing someone, because the only true fear is losing ourselves. This is a profound inner reversal. Jung once said, "The sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being, and that light is not the light given by others, but the light we kindle from within. When we live authentically, a quiet peace emerges, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of wholeness. We no longer pursue being understood by others because we already understand ourselves. We no longer need others to believe in us because we already believe in ourselves. We no longer need confirmation, because our existence itself is confirmation. Those who are aligned will find their way to us. Those who are no longer aligned will drift away. There is no drama, no tragedy, no emotional theater, only the natural shifting of frequency. Those who once entered our life to receive energy will fade out of orbit. Those who once leaned on us as an emotional crutch will lose connection. Those who once needed us to play the healer will no longer come. Conversely, those who know how to self-heal will arrive. Those who live truthfully will walk alongside us. Those who recognize the soul will recognize us. This is not magic. This is the science of the soul. 12. The final invitation, choosing yourself. Releasing the old and entering authentic life. And when the external world has already rearranged itself according to the new frequency of your inner being, when the right people have arrived, when the mismatched relationships have faded away, when synchronicity appears like a compass in the dark, then what remains is the final step, stepping into authentic life with the full courage of the soul. This is no longer an unconscious process, but a conscious choice. This is where the journey back to yourself reaches its sacred meaning. In this final passage, the text offers an invitation, not through pressure, not through instruction, but through illumination. A question begins to echo inside you today. What am I ready to release? Releasing an old belief, I must be loved to have value. Releasing an old pattern, I must please everyone. Releasing an expired relationship, I can no longer live truthfully in this connection. Releasing the fears that kept you in the comfort zone. I am afraid of being alone. I am afraid of being abandoned. I am afraid of being misunderstood. But by this point, you understand. There is a deeper fear far more terrifying than all the others combined. The fear of living an entire life without ever being yourself. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Living authentically is never the easy path, never the smooth path, never the painless path. It is the path of courage, the path of unconditional honesty, the path of self-respect. You no longer live to make others comfortable. You no longer live so the world won't be unsettled by your truth. You no longer live to fit someone else's expectation. You live to not betray your own soul. On this path, there will be those who say, "You've changed." Yes, you have, because you've shed the old skin. Some will say, "You're not like before." Yes, you are no longer the version that shrinks, compromises, sacrifices in order to be loved. Some will say, "You've become distant." Yes, you no longer abandon your own needs to serve theirs. Jung once wrote a deeply revealing line, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Accepting yourself means accepting the shadows, accepting the wounds, accepting the weaknesses, accepting the parts still unhealed, and then looking straight at all of it without turning away from yourself. Then the text presents a beautiful truth. Every time you do not betray yourself, you are healing. Healing is not no longer feeling pain. Healing is stopping the abandonment of your own soul. Healing is when you know you are hurting and still stand with yourself. Healing is when you know you are afraid and still move toward honesty. Healing is when you know the loneliness may last, but it is the loneliness of authenticity, not the loneliness of self-betrayal. In living truthfully, a new field of energy begins to radiate, not through words, not through persuasion, not through philosophy, but through the presence of the authentic being. Someone who has stopped pretending, someone who has stopped shrinking, someone who has chosen themselves. And the miracle is authenticity has a contagious frequency. When one person lives truthfully, they ignite another. When one person releases the old, they grant courage to others to do the same. When one person stops betraying themselves, they open a path for wandering souls to find their way home. Carl Jung once wrote, "As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. And that light begins within yourself, not through changing others, not through saving the world, but through ending the betrayal of your own essence." Finally, the invitation still echoes, gentle yet weighty. Are you ready to choose yourself? Are you ready to choose truth over comfort? Are you ready to choose awakening over pleasing? Are you ready to choose honesty over acceptance? Are you ready to choose the soul over the role? If the answer is yes, then it is not just a decision. It is a vow to yourself. If you feel the value and depth of this journey, consider leaving a like as a way of sending positive energy to us. And don't forget to subscribe to continue walking with us through these spiritual explorations, where every dream, every reflection, and every breath becomes a doorway into the world within you. Because to understand Jung is not merely to understand psychology, but to understand the soul of humanity.